Ramadan is here. This is the month where Muslims all over the world fast from dawn all the way up to dusk. So no food and no water. And this is a month of discipline, spirituality, and also a period of reflection. But it's also a month where we can really optimize for our physical health, cleanse our bodies and ditch all these bad habits that we've developed over the last year or so. But we all know when we're fasting for 12 to 16 hours and we come to break our fast, it's really easy to indulge in all the high carbs, fatty foods, spicy foods, sugary foods, and basically stuff ourselves with all this food. Which is why, as a doctor, I am even more aware of some of the complaints people have during Ramadan, which includes things like constipation, heartburn, stomach upset, bad sleep, headaches, and interestingly also putting on weight. But if we do it right, Ramadan can actually be a really good time to kickstart ourselves into a healthy lifestyle that serves our body and also our mind. So how can we remain healthy but still be able to reap all the benefits from fasting? Well, you're in luck, because this is the video where I answer that question and go through some of the tips that we can incorporate into our daily routine during Ramadan. So stay tuned. Lighting's a little bit better here. So the benefits of fasting are really well known. You've probably come across things like intermittent fasting and the 5-2 diet. So basically the benefits of fasting are quite well known. But why is it actually a good thing to limit our food and drink intake? And for that we have to revisit our high school biology. So when the body goes into a state of fasting after about 8 hours of no eating and no drinking, and normally our source of energy that we use to walk, think, is through sugar, and that is what we get from our diet. But when the body cannot use that sugar because we're fasting, it starts to turn to the sugar stores in our body. So the sugar stores are in our liver and also in our muscles. And then after a few days for consistently fasting, eventually the body starts turning to things like fats in our body and use that for energy. And this is a state of ketosis. Probably come across it as well. People go on the keto diet and things like that. That is the kind of biology behind it. So what are some of the benefits? I actually wrote some of these down. So it helps encourage weight loss. It actually makes our thinking clearer. So increases our concentration and our focus. And this has actually been observed after about a few days of fasting. Fasting can improve diabetes, and in some cases it can actually reverse diabetes, lower our cholesterol, improve our blood pressure. One of the interesting benefits is it down-regulates the feelings of hunger. Fasting has been shown to interrupt some of the hormones that are involved in appetite. And I've noticed this myself actually when I'm fasting. After about 3 or 4 days, I've noticed that my appetite has gone significantly down. And that is actually a long-term benefit as well that can carry on even after we finish Ramadan. So how can we actually do it in a healthy way? I thought of looking at this in terms of suhoor or sehri, or opening the fast, and also what we do when we break our fast, or iftar or afur. And for suhoor or sehri, it's really important to maximize our fluid intake and also try and keep ourselves fuller for longer. So what kind of food does that include? So some of the foods I'm talking about are foods that are low in what's called the glycemic index. And what that basically means is how fast does your sugars go up after certain foods. So a high glycemic index means the sugar in our blood spikes, and a low glycemic index means it kind of slowly over time builds up. And the lower the glycemic index, the fuller we feel for longer, and it avoids these massive spikes in our blood sugars, which comes after like sugary foods, highly processed foods. And those low glycemic index foods are also the ones that make us feel hungrier quicker. So low glycemic index food includes things like porridge. So porridge is a complex carbohydrate that is well known to help us feel fuller for longer, and the levels of sugar in our body are quite steady. Other foods that are quite good are things like wholemeal bread, muesli, any sort of grains, any sort of pulses, so like beans. And also prioritizing our fluids. It's easy to forget we need to hydrate as much as possible as well, and avoid things like dehydration, which leads to things like the headaches and feeling tired and low energy and that type of thing. So what can we do to make iftari or breaking the fast more healthier? And it's quite similar to the things I was talking about for the opening of the fast. So really about avoiding things like the fatty foods, the spicy foods, the fried foods. And the reason for that is, one, obviously the contents higher fat and higher calories, but also those are the common foods that contribute to things like heartburn and indigestion, which is things like bloating, stomach upset, metallic taste in the mouth. And the reason for that is those foods increase the production of acid in the stomach and also irritate the stomach lining. Well, samosas and pakoras and Somali qura and all of those are fried. So do we stop that altogether? And no, it's all about moderation. So for example, doing it every other day, or maybe substituting the frying for a grilling or baking, so we're not using as much oil. So there's always little things that we can do to really help make our Ramadan much more healthier. Other tips are eating slowly, allow the body to kind of adjust to the food and the stomach, to slowly stretch over time. And again, that helps avoid binge eating and eating a large amount of food quite quickly in a short period of time. Easy to turn to this, I've been there, but really trying to reduce down like sugary foods as well. So like cakes, sweets, biscuits, and all those things. And I know this sounds like, well, what is there to eat? Can substitute it for dates, healthy homemade cakes and things like that. Anything else that contains sugar. So for example, fruits, they contain a lot of natural sugars. So if you need that sweet tooth being tended to, those are some of the things you can do. The other thing is caffeine, and this is not talked about a lot. Caffeine when we're fasting can be a bit of a problem because we're breaking our fast quite late in the day, quite close to sleep, and drinking coffee and tea and fizzy drinks can really disturb our quality of sleep and also make it more difficult to fall asleep. So I personally avoid caffeine altogether, and I found that detoxing myself from caffeine makes such a big difference. So I have less headaches, I feel more energized, and over time I noticed that I don't really need it anymore. But caffeine also makes you urinate a lot, which is probably a bit of a problem if we've gone to sleep quite late and we have to get up for suhoor, and you're getting up at night to go for a wee. So another benefit there. Other things people say is, can I still exercise? Can I still go to the gym? And the answer to that is highly dependent on what kind of a person you were before Ramadan. If you were someone who was regularly going to the gym, I would argue that you should carry on going to the gym. Probably not as long and not as intense of a workout, but still trying to keep up with the level of activity that we had before Ramadan. I personally still go to the gym, probably less frequently, and I do less of the cardio, but again, I find that it still invigorates me even though I'm fasting. Generally speaking, the answer to that is trying to continue doing the level of activity that you were before Ramadan. And if you weren't someone who's very active, then you can use Ramadan as a way to get that incorporated into your day. I think I've yapped on a lot actually, so I'm gonna wrap this up. Hopefully that was useful. Please give it a like. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next video.